a moment here.
Okay.
You want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Dave Tovey. I'm the Executive Director for the Nixyaawii Community Financial Services. And it was nice that half my slides are stuff that Skya already called, already talked about. She's top rate. She's a really, really wonderful individual.
Yeah, she was great to talk about with. So I have your slides pulled up, and so just let me know when you want me to hit the next button. I'll let you take it away.
Okay, like I said, we're the Nixyaawii Community Financial Services. We're a developing community development financial institution, meaning that we aren't certified by the Department of Treasury yet. I did want to call out and note our logo there on the top. And that was our board of directors met, and they had one of the board members had a concept. And that board member is Bobby Connor, works with Tmusluk. And her notion was they have a couple of pieces over there at Tmusluk in their collections exhibit that is a beaded belt purse, with the idea, like a lot of us kids when we were running around, ran up to grandma and asking for a couple coins for penny candy. Well, I'm dating myself, but back in the day there was penny candy, and anyway, the idea was go up and get a little bit of money. And when you get a little bit of money, your grandma would always give you some sage advice. So that's kind of captures in some ways the two-pronged approach that we are with a CDFI, both providing loan money as well as guidance and financial coaching and financial well-being training, so you're better able to manage yourself towards self-sufficiency and wealth. Next one, if I could. Yeah, and I think these are ones we could probably jump through. Like I said, there's about 70 native CDFIs across the country, thousands around. They're different. I think these are pretty much things that Skye also covered. The one thing that I was really struck by, and I'm fairly new to the industry yet, having spent most of my time in economic development and tribal administration. But one of the things that native CDFIs say is that, our job is not to say no. Never say no. We might not be able to do a loan now, but, it's really about not yet. What can we do to get you ready for a loan product? Go ahead, next one. Let's see, like I said, extensive group and individual technical assistance. And our objective in some ways, as we've said, is kind of working ourselves out of business. We really want to make sure our loan customers are at that point where they don't necessarily need us. They might want to go on to more conventional mainstream banking. Will that ever happen? I don't know. I think we're going to be viable for probably a couple generations, and indeed our board of directors really wants to focus on youth financial services, which I'll cover in a second. Next one. These are just kind of the historical pieces. The 2010 comprehensive plan had a focus on small business and financial stability for good credit ratings and family resiliency. There was a group that came together and wanted to start analyzing, and it was really the Wild Horse Business Development Services up here where they were based. And the former director, Kathleen Flanagan, worked closely with Gary George, Wild Horse CEO, and wanted to take a look at CDFI. So they got involved with a cohort organization. Tom Hampson was involved. Leo Stewart, I think, was on the board of trustees at the time, and they traveled there and got to meet with a lot of my colleague native CDFIs across the country, including Natalie Charlie from Quinault and other places, and came up with kind of a presentation to the board to say, well, this might make sense for us. So I did a really extensive feasibility study. If anybody wants to see that, I think is one of the better feasibility studies, community kind of based feasibility studies on kind of the challenges. I found that a lot of people had noted they were living paycheck to paycheck, weren't in banking accounts, having financial stress in their life. So that was enough to prompt them to move forward and start doing a business plan. And that business plan included different components that would be consolidated. Next slide. I'm sorry, I was going to polish this off, but I got hit with one of those nasty summer colds on Wednesday, so I'm still shaking it. So if I'm a little hoarse and punchy, you can blame it on the virus. Let's see, we were officially formed as a tribal nonprofit corporation. The tribe has authority to form nonprofits, if you didn't know. It was approved by 19008 on January 28, 2019. We got approved as a 501c3 nonprofit corporation by Department of Treasury on November 25th, final board resolution. That's a little messed up right there. We actually got approved in February. And then shortly thereafter, the Board of Trustees approved the CDFI business plan formally by resolution 21015 on February 24th. That approved. And what we did was, because we were assuming control of the credit program, which is a pretty large portfolio, as you know, probably serves about 60% of our tribal membership, about a $5 million portfolio. The board, the prior board and the current board have been very concerned, wanting to make sure that we're not restricting access to these tribal loans that a lot of our membership have become dependent upon. So, you know, what we did was, and this happens with all of our sources of capital, there will be donor restrictions. If we get money from the Economic Development Administration, rural development, USDA rural development, from foundations or anywhere else, they're going to have donor restrictions. So we use that as a tool with kind of setting up a contractual obligation for use of that portfolio. And we just actually met in a work session with the Board of Trustees this morning to kind of review those and kind of how they become baked more into permanent tribal law. Next one. So really, there's three programs that were slated to be consolidated under that business plan. Again, that business plan was developed, gee whiz, 2016, I think was when they started Project 15. And then that was in another couple of years later. But there's three programs that they identified that had the components that were involved with typical and advanced native CDFIs or CDFIs in general. Again, you know, those two-prong of lending on one hand and kind of hands-on direct technical assistance on the other. So, you know, the tribal credit program was in Department of Finance. Home ownership program, and you probably know Pamela Ranslin in housing, does the home ownership classes. And then business development services based here at Wild Horse. And that's Raven Manta, that's the program manager there. Okay, next slide. And let's see, on March 4th, 2019, after we got the bylaws approved by the Board of Trustees, we had them appoint our initial board of directors. And here's a picture of them. We had a couple changes there. Jim Wallace, Kelly George, Aaron Hines, Bobby Connor, and Gabriel Moses are all still with us. Shane Munkers had to step off, and then Doris Wheeler was the then treasurer. The treasurer of the Board of Trustees has a standing seat on our board. We wanted to make sure we had that kind of crossover of coordination and kind of asset oversight, if you will. That's the treasurer's responsibility. But fortunately, we were able to hire Doris later as one of our loan officers. So next slide. And here's a quick rundown of them. I think we've assembled one of the most talented board of directors anywhere in Eastern Oregon. I always go for the fence a lot of times, but they really are. You know, if you didn't know, Kelly George spent 10 years in the banking industry. Aaron Hines is our vice president. You know, he's over with human resources, but also Terrell program and himself a former treasurer. Jim Wallace, retired CFO for tribal government, Yellowhawk. I think some of the work he did at Yellowhawk with third-party billing, you know, allowed us to build the kind of facility we have right there. And of course, he's got a tribal member family living on the reservation. Sandra Sampson, board trustees, treasurer, and of course, deep background in health, financing, accounting here at Wild Horse and other locations. Bobby Connor, Select director. Bobby, before she came this way, she's former regional manager for the Small Business Administration down in around the Bay Area in California. But also, you know, Bobby, she's on some of the most powerful boards around, Oregon Community Foundation, Eastern Oregon University, EcoTrust, and others. So, you know, having somebody that has that kind of connection was huge. Gabe Moses. Gabe, I made the mistake. I thought he was a tribal member, but he's not actually enrolled here. But born and raised here, and he's an attorney with Native American Program Oregon Legal Services, and living down around the Lake Oswego area, I believe, around the Portland area. And then when we had to replace out Shane Munkers, we went out and we really wanted to get somebody from the lending industry. So we got the Community and Economic Development Officer for the Greater Eastern Oregon Development Corporation. And they themselves have about $100,000 loan program for Indian-owned businesses. So we thought that was a kind of a key addition for us. Next slide. Our staff, you know, I think a lot of, you know, when a lot of these native CDFIs got organized, they were one person that had a really good idea, no capital, no operating budget, but, you know, just a lot of heart and drive to make it so. And there's some great examples here in the Northwest. The Northwest Native Development Fund, that's up at Colville area. Ted Piccolo put that together. Natalie Charlie with the Quinault Tala Fund. She came on and just said, we're going to do this. I think Janelle Yearout over with Nez Perce with the Nimipu Fund. They've all had to kind of start from bare scratch. I always kind of feel a little embarrassed because we got all these existing talents and resources already on hand. So real quickly, our staff is, I'm the executive director. I secured a grant from Oregon Community Foundation, was able to hire Becky Kane. And if you've worked with Becky Kane over the years, you know, she's really, really good on the details. And I because we're taking on such a huge tribal asset, I wanted to make sure that we had, you know, we were doing everything clean and, you know, auditable and had financial reports that reflected such. So that was a big score for us. Raven is a hard working person. She's kept this project alive throughout its existence, you know, from 2016, you know, Kathleen Flanagan moved on. Raven had to jump in. So she's been doing about 2 or 3 jobs, including this job I'm sitting in for a number of years, and kept all of our grant reports current, kept her services going for small business services, and just did an amazing job. And then, of course, Pamela Ranslem, with the home ownership program, you know, doing what she's doing, and, you know, and her classes are filling up really fast. Her real estate background is really, you know, I always knew she knew her stuff, but I didn't know the depth of her knowledge until working this closely with her over the year. Like I said, we've got Doris Wheeler as our NFC loan officer. Quincy George is the other loan officer. By the way, Quincy is moving on to another position within tribal government. We hate to lose him, but he was a tremendous asset for us, and we're in the position right now where we're filling that role. And then Raven Cody is our loan processor, and Raven's just outstanding customer service. You know, I know people, a lot of times we're having to deal with folks that are a little upset about turnaround time on their applications. And believe me, it was all the more difficult because all these folks, we had to take over control of the program about in October of 2020. So all these folks came in without a lot of training. I mean, they all had financial skills and kind of the personality skills we were looking for, but, you know, we had to get them trained up on the software, how to do the balance checks, the promissory notes, all that kind of stuff. So that I always said, you know, we threw you guys into a boot camp here, and I'm really sorry, but if you can hang on, it's going to get better. So, you know, a lot of that work is coming along that way. Excuse me. Types of lending we'll be doing. As I know, I was able to get some grant resources for a small business loan product. It won't be much. It'll be probably capped out at $15,000, but, you know, lining up some other capital sources for that, both with partner organizations where you do participation lending, but also with the new American Recovery Act. There's a particular program there that I'm working on, trying to secure resources for that. Food sovereignty was one of the things that came up when we met with the farm committee, it was an idea they had at that time. Catherine Menthorn, Jeremy Wolf, Paul Wallace, and others are on that committee, and they were noting that a lot of our home sites have a couple extra acreages associated with it. And they said, well, can we maybe develop a little loan product if people wanted to do a couple head of cattle or a production garden, or maybe chicken rearing, chicken coops kind of thing. And that was one of those concepts that kind of gets stuck in your head. And so we were able to get a little bit of grant money together for that, for loans, and we're ready to launch that here once we get settled in our new offices, I think shortly thereafter, for loans up to about $5,000. And of course, that could be a co-signed loan with a youngster that's kind of doing some of the things that maybe 4-H and other things might have done, where they're able to raise what they're raising till it gets to market. The education, there's still a small education loan. We took over all the existing loan products that the credit program had, and there was an existing education loan that's not very used very much, but it's still in the books, and we'd like to make improvements for that. We've talked, we're reaching out to Modesta to see how we could streamline that more. One of the things, it was really my intent to try to get things settled where we are, and then take care of what we're responsible for, and not do too much new. But of course, that Nixyaawii subdivision is coming along pretty fast, and there's a need to finance land leases. It's going to be a process of securing the land lease, probably going through some of Pamela's classes, getting ready, and then starting to work a deal on your mortgage package. So you really have to have the land locked down first. So we're talking about a 3-year loan to secure those land leases, and putting out a loan product for that. I still got to raise capital for it, as well as some of the other kind of qualifiers, but that's something we're right up on our list real quick. We already had a source of capital from the Indian Land Capital Company for land acquisition, and this is kind of in partnership with DECD when they were doing the land buyback. But the conditions of that were really bad. We're hoping under the Biden administration some of those terms could be fixed, because I think that's a really great source. And most of the folks I dealt with were interested in just increasing their ownership on the allotment they have, not securing majority ownership. And that's the only loan qualification that they had. And that's, always just a hard thing for folks to meet, especially if you're buying 2, 3, 4, 5 parcels from different buyers to achieve that 51%. And then, like I said, we have full continuation of the current credit program loan products. Next one. Development services. That's the term of art in the CDFI world, is development services, which is essentially financial coaching. Financial coaching is kind of a unique thing. We don't do credit counseling. Credit counseling is a separately licensed sort of discipline, but financial coaching is really kind of a client-driven conversational approach to try to drill down to what an individual client needs are. Home buyer education, like I said, we've been pretty darn successful doing that through Pamela's work, but with both the financial and mortgage preparation classes. She's been doing 2 classes so far on financial classes on Wednesday at noon and in the evening, and I know those filled up fast. So we're seeing that as an indication of demand for the Nixyaawii subdivision. Business coaching, have both classroom and individual guidance, and Raven does that. Raven just finished, I think, a 6-week class called The One, with in partnership with the Oregon Native American Chamber of Commerce. We had about 7 folks from around here that kind of made a business pitch to us in sort of a Shark Tank kind of environment. Now it's all Zoom, but it was one of the most inspiring things I'd ever seen, to see these young folks, and some not so young, coming up with different kind of business ideas of how they wanted it. So it's kind of a big step for them to kind of go out, but now it's up to us to kind of help align resources to help them. Then individual development accounts is really kind of a big thing in terms of the kind of the carrot, if you will, for engagement. And we do two different kind of IDAs, individual development accounts, they call them. Of course, the Util Builds, which is down payment assistance, matching savings, the home ownership program does. And then Raven's crafted some youth matched savings with and the original being in coordination with their entrepreneurial summer camp, youth entrepreneurial summer camp. Next slide, please. This is all the products for youth. One of the things we'll cover them. I think I kind of covered them all. There's one that's kind of important is this 18 money. When that lands, we've been finding, and we've been able to work with folks, like Bruce Zimmerman and others, provide some real good guidance because there's kind of some deadlines there, especially when you turn 16. You have to make a declaration whether you want to take all your money or want to do it over a phased amount. The tax implications between those two choices are huge. And, we've had a couple of those classes so far. And the one thing that strikes me is people exit that, they'll go, well, geez, I wish I would have known that before. I wish we would have been a little bit better prepared and could have provided our youngsters better guidance on that. So this is a kind of a big one. Like I said, youth services are a really big priority for our board of directors. With the notion that ideally we're in the game for generational change. Next slide, please. Oh, and there's all of our young folks from 2019, and boy, I tell you, it was a real disappointment we didn't get to do that. One of the things they did was they got together in teams and developed products, and you've seen that over the years that Raven and business development have done, where they'll be out there in the rotunda of the governance center and selling different products they produced, and it's just, I mean, that's an inspiring thing too, to see young folks and that kind of energy come up with ideas and then save that money. Next slide. Status today, real quick. All NCFS staff will continue work at the current locations as of today with access and lease arrangements. We had to do a little lease with Wild Horse. We're having to impose on Marcus's good graces there at housing. And of course, our credit program is located up in the former Office of Legal Counsel on the second floor of the Governance Center. So we're all kind of having to work. Like I said, I haven't had all my staff together in one room yet over this whole year, driving me nuts. But nonetheless, coordination by Zoom like everybody else. But I'm pretty darn proud of how far we've been able to come, even in that kind of environment. We have our accounting and payroll systems has been developed and launched on January 1st. So we are indeed independent. We really wanted to set the time frame for budgetary cutoff too, which is the cleanest. So this fiscal year is all NCFS. And of course, we have our consolidated budget. We have our HR manual. Next slide. Oh, everybody's always interested in the new offices. And if you didn't know, we're over in the Perennial building on Coyote Business Park in the former Dairy Queen space. There's my little typo that I had when I got a little carried away getting it done. We've had some implications from supply chain challenges, but they're all coming together well. We thought we'd be able to get in there in early April, but keep slipping because of some of those challenges. But I'd rather do it right than hustle too fast. We did a contract early on with Coyote Technologies to plan and configure our computer phone software, because again, when we're moving in there, which was just an empty office space, we don't have the wiring, the computer configuration, the Outlook, all the things you're used to having in a system. And they've been just a joy to work with, I tell you, as well as our IT folks here at Wild Horse. They're just ready to jump in and help wherever they can. Tenant improvements have been largely complete. There's a little bit of punch list items, like mirrors on the wall, on the bathroom wall, and stuff like that. So we'll be doing a kind of a walkthrough punch list with those folks. But it was McCormick Construction, and again, that building is not owned by the tribe. It's owned by Carrie Burns of that originally developed it. So she, once we had our lease terms arranged there, She paid for the tenant improvements, which were going to be recouped through lease payments over time. But she'd contracted with McCormick Construction, and I thought they just did a really wonderful job. We're connecting with the tribe's new broadband project for internet services. It's going to save us a pile of money. You couldn't believe how expensive those services are. But it was so nice to be able to work with DCD and Bruce and their crew. And they ran the pipe right behind our offices up there, so that's really good. And actually, as of yesterday, they started moving some staff items in. So over this month, you'll see a lot of people kind of getting phased in into the offices. We got to do month-end closeout, which is the cleanest cutoff for the credit program, for the loan program. So that's going to happen next week, and then we're converting over to our new loan software. Next slide. I think I'm almost done, you guys. I'm sorry it takes so long. Accomplishments. Assume management of the credit program. Like I said, we had to take that over in October. All new tribal staff, all managed remotely, put them into a boot camp, and I apologize to them every day. I'm sorry, you guys, because it's a lot of work. And then we had a series of the largest gaming dividends, which is the primary source of repayment ever to hit us. So those made their activity really high. And again, I got to thank the tribal membership. A lot of people, most of our customers were very, very patient when they understood what our situation was. And I'll always be grateful for that. Homeownership program. Pamela Ramslin's working with the housing development team. Thankfully, we got somebody on the inside down there working on that project, and they're moving fast, as you well know. So, Pam's able to provide insight and guidance and make sure we're all on board with what we have to do, particularly on those land leases. Like I said, I talked about Raven doing a series of youth financial literacy and match savings programs. Last year, was it last year, year before? I forget. We had that big financial literacy fair over at Nixyaawii community school, and probably I think close to 80 students, all of Nixyaawii and some from other surrounding schools participated. Oh, I wish we could do that again. But given pandemic restrictions, we weren't able to this year. Towards the end of the year, we saw that other tribes were starting to do small business grants with CARES Act funding. So we made a pitch to the Board of Trustees, and they authorized this $250 million. And we put out a quick notice to all of our small businesses. So 38 recipients received grants between $5,000 and $10,000 and landed just before Christmas. And I think that was one of the things we're real proud to be able to launch that fast and be able to make sure we're kind of keeping, our small businesses alive during, probably one of the most trying economic times ever. And then with 2 grants, we've got those 2 small business and food sovereignty loans starting up. Next slide, please. And that's it. Thank you for this opportunity to serve. I would note real quick that our target markets are threefold: tribal members and their families, tribal employees of tribal entities and their families, and reservation residents and their families. Now, right now, we only have capital by way of the credit program, the credit program for tribal members, but these 2 new loan products will be open to those other target markets too. And that'll be my job, to raise capital for those other target markets. So that's it. Sorry if I went over there too much, Colleen.